I've heard Democrats say they're frustrated with this president. This is your moment. This is your time to put America before politics. The question will be, for those Democratic members, are they going to stand behind the action of the decision to leave Americans behind? Because we will not.
You're looking at live images of the Kabul airport in Afghanistan, where the Taliban have reportedly walked across the runway as a show of symbolism of their new control after the U.S. troop withdrawal. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy calling out the Biden administration and Democrats who have been critical of the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. Let's discuss the political ramifications of what's transpired over the last couple of weeks with former Biden campaign surrogate Kevin Walling and the author of Defender-in-Chief Donald Trump's Fight for Presidential Power, John Yoo. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey, Mike, good to be with you.
The chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, a Democrat, says President Biden's messaging has been all over the map.
Well, the public messaging was all over the map on this. I had many private conversations, and we had a classified brief last week for the Armed Services Committee. And look, the mission was clear in that context. And I questioned, so they kept saying, we'll have the mission complete by August 31st. And I was like, well, what is the mission?
Kevin, is he right?
I think so, in that we should have investigations as to the closing days of our war in Afghanistan. We know that the vast majority of American people wanted us out of this country. Should there be hearings? Should there be transparency with regards to the evacuation? Absolutely. Was it the right decision? Was it a decision ultimately supported by every member of the Joint Chiefs and our commanders on the ground to stick to this August 31 deadline, as the president said in a statement tonight? Absolutely. We're going to hear from the commander-in-chief tomorrow. Over 120,000 Americans, our allies on the ground, and our NATO supporters were evacuated in these last 2 weeks, which is a Herculean effort that we saw, the largest exculpation of this kind in terms of an airlift in human history. So certainly it is successful in many ways, of course, in the shadow of losing those 13 service members, 18 wounded as part of that attack. But certainly there are more questions about this than answers.
Congressman Brian Mast, a highly decorated Afghan war vet who paid a very heavy price personally, does not sound very confident that Speaker Pelosi will allow serious oversight.
She will step up to that podium, bang her gavel, and say, I will not recognize you. I will not hear a word about Afghanistan. I do not want to listen to what's going on there. I do not want to pay attention to it. I do not want to conduct oversight about it. You know that it's that likely that that's what she will do.
John, will Congress get answers?
I can't believe that people really think this is a problem about messaging. This was a tactical disaster and a strategically self-inflicted wound on the United States, not just in the region, but our credibility around the world. So Congress is going to get answers. And if they're not going to start investigations now, if they're not going to allow oversight hearings now in the House or the Senate, then that's what elections are for. And I think the images that we saw in Afghanistan and the people we've left behind, the arsenals of weapons we've left behind, the destabilization in the region that's going to occur, that's going to be on people's minds in the next congressional elections, and control of the House and the Senate may shift, and then you're going to get very serious investigations that will go on at that time.
The State Department tonight says as many as 200 American citizens remain in Afghanistan. Kevin, clearly the first concern is their health and safety. This is a political panel. What's the political risk there?
There's certainly political risk, and obviously everything is through the lens of the midterms. We're about 450 days away from the midterms in terms of John's point. But I think the American people, as I said earlier, wanted an end to this war. They support political courage when they see it. And I think, the president obviously has detractors over these last couple of weeks and months on the ground. But ultimately, I think the president's decision was the right one. And again, there will be questions about its execution. But at the end of the day, the American people wanted out of this conflict, wanted out of this 20-year war. We paid the ultimate sacrifice with over 4,000 American dead in terms of service members and contractors and DOD civilians. But at the end of the day, I think the American people understand political courage, and the consequences be damned in the case of this president who saw the writing on the wall, did not want to continue down this path that his predecessors had been down, and I think will actually respond in the midterms to this political courage.
Big question marks, though, about those couple hundred American citizens. We'll see how that plays out. If it wasn't easy for them to get to the airport with American troops there, it's a big question about how they get out now. Meanwhile, the commander-in-chief not taking questions.
I'm not supposed to take any questions, but go ahead.
Mr. President, on Afghanistan?
I'm not going to answer Afghanistan now.
Can you get the still in
Okay.
John, what do you make of that?
I think the American people want answers, and it's disappointing to see that the president will not answer basic questions about what was our strategy, why were we doing things like closing leaving Bagram base and focusing all our evacuation efforts in a least defensible place. Why are there hundreds of Americans still left behind? What vulnerabilities are we still going to be under? For example, if Americans who are still there get taken hostage. I think that these are all questions American people want answered, and the president, he can give an address, but they want to see him pressed with questions and give answers too, and I don't think he can just put all these inquiries aside just by saying, I refuse to answer anymore.
Interesting, and of course you had Secretary of State Blinken not taking questions tonight. There was some shouted at him as he left the room this evening. We'll see where it goes. We hear from the Commander-in-Chief tomorrow afternoon. John, Kevin, many thanks.
Mike, good to be with you.